Katniss, get away from that tree! Katniss, get away from that tree!
Lost power.
This definitely is a construct or a simulation or a matrix or any of those words work, holographic, that we inside here, inside this construct, are in fact the creators. We are the creator beings. This is what we do. We create constructs for experiences in density.
More real, more dense than it could ever be here. While at the same time, you could go through, access all of the dimensional spaces, realms, and constructs, and manifest these places as well.
You use the word construct, and that to me implies that somebody created it. Am I right about that, or what do you think?
Yeah, this place is created, all right? Now, a lot of people may think that, oh, this place is created by God or all those things. And if that is because you also need to, if that's the viewpoint and a belief that people hold, then we'll say that it was created by God, right? But all of the constructs, which contains the realms and the multidimensional spaces, are created by individual souls. So me, you on the other side could create whatever it is that we want. So you could create your own heaven on the other side, while at the same time create your own hell on the other side, based off your fullest expression of your soul wanting to experience, right? When I say there's no limitation, whatever it is that Darius, Jeff, or anybody else wants to experience on the other side, the only way to experience that is to create it. And you create it through creating the construct, the realms, and the dimensional spaces, so that you can have that experience, whatever it is that you want.
Why do we come to this realm?
Based off what I've gotten so far through leaving my body and accessing this, is the beginning of this was we entered this realm in the beginning. So let's just say if there's 12 realms total, like I said before, and you work your way down to realm number 1, we entered this as a game to experience, right? And so you enter the 12th realm, which would be very light and as close as you can get to all the pleasures of physicality with no limitations, everything that I've already discussed already. And as you progress through the realm, the construct game, and get to realm 1, it becomes the hardest and dense, well, not densest, the hardest and most cut off from remembering who you are. So the best way to explain it is that this was a game that was created originally to experience that which you are not. And that's just the best way to summarize it, because then that could go into many different avenues as well, you know, based off people's different perceptions and beliefs.
Do you think that this is the hardest game out of all the realms?
Yeah, it is. This one is the hardest place to be, because no other place in creation is like this. Like I said before, when you enter different spaces or are on the other side, you don't forget who you are. This is the only place in all creation that exists where you forget who you are. And you have duality as what we experience here. The extremes and the distortions and and the being corrupt, having the body decay, all these things only exist within this realm, nowhere else.
Do you think part of
And all these different sections lead you to different records based off different constructs, realms, and experiences. All the thing is, all is known too. Like everything that you experience here is stored in all the universal records, the records of all things. So there, in a sense, there's no such thing as privacy either. A lot of people think that they have privacy here, but everything's recorded. Every single detail of your life and experience is recorded in the records of all things, which can be accessed, even to the point where when I'm leaving my body too, which was 100% there. And so everything that people think, all those things are stored in the records of all things, right? And this is why I said before, this is where a lot of people are going to go into like a panic, like, oh, I'm exposed. And yeah, we all are naked on the other side. Every single being's naked. And this is where there's no judgment. Like there's judgment here because we don't remember the beginning of all things and what we're doing as souls and the uniqueness of each individual soul. Because when you understand the beginning of all things and the uniqueness of the soul, you cannot judge, because really you're just judging yourself at the end of the day. You cannot have ultimate expression of freedom with a condition, just like you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment.
Do you think that fear?
And I was like you could stay here, you don't need to go back. But because the longer you're there, more memory, more information pours into, you remember things. My soul desired and wanted to come back to this, because this realm is also never happening again. This realm's coming to completion, and it's never going to repeat again. So it's like, because, and the reason why I say that too is because, but like I said before, like this realm is the only realm that has been created for experiencing the extremes. Now we have experienced, right, the extremes within this realm, so extreme that there's really nothing new to learn within this realm, right? Everything that has been experienced, or everything that could have been experienced, has been experienced by some soul here. And that's all stored within the records of all things. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're buying time, we're repeating stuff, all those things. But typically the souls that leave now, right, and the souls that have been leaving through the past years, they're not coming back, and they're not forced to come back unless they desire to, if they want to experience the finale of all things here and stuff like that.
It's fascinating that you mentioned
peace or emptiness. Essentially, when you want to create something, you start from the black space.
You would say that the black space is separate and outside of all the constructs, right?
Yeah. The black space is not a construct. It's outside of it all. Now, every single realm or construct, and enter the realms and stuff like that. All the constructs and realms, you could say they're all simulations, right? If people want to use simulation, I just call them different experiences. All of those spaces are created from the black space. The black space exists outside of all of those things. So when you choose to experience something, you will come out of that black space to then enter the catalog of realms that you want to experience, or create a realm if it's not already created, to experience that which your soul chooses and desires to experience.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it is a positive one, but it may be perceived as others as not positive. Is that when individuals state that there are many different truths and many different things, this is true and also wrong. And I'll explain why. There are unbreakable truths, right? It's really one unbreakable, unchangeable truth of the universe, which could be categorized as three, that does not change based on your personal perceptional truth. Your personal perceptional truth changes moment to moment based off your perception. Like even people listening to this right now, before they listen to this, they were in a certain perceptional state of view, which gave them a certain perceptional truth. After watching this, whether if it's a fraction of a percent or a lot, their perception has changed. Therefore, their perceptional truth has changed. There are unbreakable and unchangeable truths of the universe, which is basically, it's one, but I'll say three, is that the first one is more of a question that leads you to the answer. Do you believe that the universe dictates consciousness, or consciousness dictates the universe? And the more that someone thinks about that, they'll eventually come to that consciousness dictates the universe, because we are the beginning and the creator of all things from that black space from the other side. And also with that, the unchangeable and unbreakable truth of the universe too, is because you are because consciousness dictates the universe, you are also, you cannot have ultimate expression of freedom with a condition or a limitation. That's the unbreakable and unchangeable truth of the universe too. Number three is that you cannot have unconditional love with the judgment. And based off those three, I think should help a lot of people validate certain experiences that they have and validate for themselves based off the perception today of whether, if it goes against the unbreakable and unchangeable truths of the universe. Now, it's like I said, your perceptional truths doesn't mean that they're not valid. But when you wake up to the other side, you also wake up to the beginning of all things and the unchangeable things, which are always present and always remain and never change, because they just are.
Darius, thank you for that message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me on.
And from everything I've experienced since then, because it's been going on for 6 and a bit years, is that this definitely is a construct or a simulation or a matrix or any of those words work, holographic, that we inside here, inside this construct, are in fact the creators. We are the creator beings. This is what we do. We create constructs for experiences in density. There are people, family members outside of the construct who did not come in to play, so to speak, who are helping and working with us. We are working from external and internal, working together to close this particular construct out. So it's not, the term "we are the ones we've been waiting for" is true, because we are also, the greater part of us is also on the outside of this construct. It's projected an aspect of itself in here to play the game. No differently to you sitting on your couch, putting on a virtual headset and entering a virtual game. So you're both inside the game and outside the game. And so are we. And we are in the process of putting ourselves back together again so that we can exit this place whole.
When you say we,
It's a story that we've got inside this construct.
would it be accurate to say that we created this simulation?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And we've all participated in it. And we're all powering it.
Now, you mentioned Li Lu. That's the being that took over your computer.
Mm-hmm.
And she is also basically a being like us, just not incarnating on the planet.
She chose not to incarnate to help from the outside, because many have come in, incarnated in here in order to help close it out, in order to help fix things, and gotten lost. Because from what I understand, it was free will that resulted in the virus, what I call the mind virus, that infected this place. And people who were heavily infected, who sought control, locked the construct from the inside. and they were monitoring everybody who came into the game. So there used to be what people would call portals, I guess. There used to be multiple entry points into the game, but they were closed, only one or two left open, and heavily monitored. So you couldn't incarnate in here without going through that, like TSA, right? And put through a mind wipe, put through a memory loss, and so many got lost in here. So it was imperative to find a way to access this place without having to go through that process. So that's what a team from home have done. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So basically, we created this construct, and it's gone off the rails now.
But the good news is,
mm-hmm.
it's closing. My experience of the timelines collapsing in 2013, which I had no context for, just to give more context, when I started doing pretty much what you're doing, interviews back in 2009, my focus was on 2012 because I had come across the main calendar in the mid-90s. 2012 seemed like a lifetime away at that point, but come 2009, it was on our doorstep, and I wanted to understand more. I wanted to see if there was anything to this. 2012, by the time we got to December of 2012, I understood the calendar to be referring to the end of time, not the end of the world. So one of the way in which this solution for this place came about, I always use computer and technology terminology because it's easy. Most people understand the basics of a computer and a hard drive and, the peripheral technology. So if this game that we're on, you can think of as a virtual reality game that's on a particular hard drive, and that particular hard drive has got a virus on it, and you can't access the files, you can't get in, it's locked from the inside. The solution was to transfer the entire game onto a new uncorrupted hard drive, right? So we transferred all the files, all the good, the bad, the ugly, the distorted, the corrupted, everything had to come over. And that was happening during 2013. We were doing this transfer because every construct also has a time limit. Like any game, you work your way up through the levels of the game and then you leave the game. This one was supposed to end in 2012. But because it was so corrupted, and because our consciousness was so deeply embedded in the game, being artificially recycled so many times, mind wiped so many times, fractalized, we were in so many pieces that when the game ended, we were broken, right? We weren't extracted from the game whole. Holmes said it led to the greatest mind wipe the universe has ever known. So back up. We go, whoops, okay. Transfer everything over into a new uncorrupted hard drive. And what we essentially did was buy ourselves more time, right? In a place where there is access from the outside. They can actually access the files properly. They can come in, so to speak, right? Incarnate in here or manifest in here without going through the TSA, which means coming in with more memories, coming in with more knowledge and memory of who you are and what you're here for. So that happened in 2013, and then at the end of 13, all of the manipulated, extraneous, falsely created timelines were able to be deleted. That's when we could start deleting the files, right? And that's when we started to really see the Mandela effects kick in, because not even all the files didn't quite move over properly. But the objective was to get us onto one positive timeline, the whole world, the whole construct. And we did that. We were working on that, refining all of that from 14, 15, and 16. And then in my observation, and also as a result of the contact happening in October of 16, I think that's when we achieved a single timeline. And the easiest way to sort of acknowledge that for me is Mr. T. Because when he came on the scene, and it didn't matter where you lived, what country, what part of the world, it didn't matter whether you were political, it didn't matter which side of that aisle you were on, you had to have an opinion on him. You had to love him or hate him. You had to be pro or anti. And it was like the first time that I saw that we were kind of being all forced under a single narrative around this one individual too, which was, quite remarkable. And then, of course, in 2020, the whole world did get under one narrative, right? So we're on one single timeline, and we are in overtime. And the whole idea is to awaken to who we are, to reclaim as much of ourselves that are in these little pieces all over the game, so that we can be as whole as possible when we leave.
What do you mean by whole? Personally or all together as one being?
I mean whole as in just as you as an individual in your own sovereign signature, and not in fractured little pieces everywhere.
Some people believe that we are trapped here in reincarnation cycles over and over again. Do you think that's true as far as, this construct being corrupted, and that's part of it?
Yeah, it has been. I think that has been absolutely true. And in 2011, I had so it's a huge, huge leap in our, I guess you could say, evolution, for want of a better word. And because this experience has changed so much, we aren't actually going back to where we came from. Source has had to create something new, and Source has created something new for us to move into. And it's because you can't grow up in a small town, for example. Spend your life traveling the world, having incredible experiences and seeing the most inspiring and incredible and horrific things, and then go back to your small town and expect to fit in with people who have never left their town. You know what I mean? It's the gap between you is just too big. So, and also because of what was learned overall about this place, creation itself has evolved. So it may not have been pleasant for many of us, but the bigger picture is it's been kind of worth it. Perhaps. And on the other side of that, August looks pretty good.
What does the collapse look like?
Well, it looks like things being exposed. It looks like your faith and trust in things that are not based in truth and authenticity and integrity being exposed and collapsing, because nothing that is not built on a foundation of truth and integrity will stand. So it's going to look like government structures, institutions, these things falling away, because they're all harvesting mechanisms. They're not really built for us, by us. They're all there to harvest our energy and to power and fund other things that are also not in our best interest.
So look like anarchy is such a dark term, but something like anarchy?
I don't think so. Because the energies in this space that we find ourselves in, that, well, at least me, that I find myself in as of March 8, are very, very supportive. So, yeah, it's going to be, you'll have that moment of, oh my God, this just happened and this is going to collapse. And what does that mean for me? And then something comes in to pick you up, to catch you. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster in that way. You may have heard the term recently with some people that you might have interviewed that, we're going to go through some sort of near-death experience. And we kind of are. They're going to be lots of little ones of like, what does that mean for me? How am I going to, but energetically as well as socially, it just feels like things are just going to come in just underneath, just behind and catch us. So it doesn't have to disintegrate into anarchy or civil war or absolute chaos. It's going to be very important, if people can do it, to just try and stay in that place of neutrality and because we can't move into something better without letting go of the old. And it doesn't have to be destructive.
Physically, this planet, this construct is still going to exist. It's just the energy here and what's happening here is going to be different? Or
yes and no. Yes and no, from what I understand. This place is coming to an end in that there will not be any more beings coming into it or living in it, having an experience in it. But nothing is ever destroyed. It'll literally go on the library shelf and go, that was that construct. There isn't there stuff in the Bible about God's library or, so it's like, it just gets shelved. It gets archived. But she was moving on to the new space to support life there. So in terms of a real mind bender, that one was one.
Kind of set off to the side, there is no planet. That's all part of the construct. I'm assuming that is what you're meaning, right?
Yeah, I mean, in 2015, this is all part of my journey too. Like in 2015, when the flat Earth thing exploded, I looked into that, and that's ultimately what led me to hologram. So, and Home has referred to it as an endless flat plane. And but the idea that it's a living, breathing being is what they were very adamant about, is not the case.
Can you give any advice for all of us collectively going forward?
Well, my personal catchphrases since 2016 are get in your heart and stay in your heart. And it's an individual inside job. And we're kind of past the point of trying to wake people up and save them and all that sort of thing. We really have to do this for ourselves. Start seeing what's going on in the world and what's going on in your own life as happening for you, not to you, because it's all happening for you to create opportunities for you to break out of programming, to pull back your energy, to reclaim your consciousness, to become whole. And the path from here on in is to be walked with integrity and truth. I mean, I personally cannot deny that February 14 of 2020, Home came in and said the negative pull has begun. So those of a negative bent were being pulled first. And within exactly 4 weeks later, the world went into lockdown. And then 13 months later, the positive pull began. So we are when people talk about the event, or they talk about ascension, or they talk about a flash, or they talk about all these things, it makes it sound like it's going to happen in an instant. I think we're in it. We've been in it since 2020. And it's just happening very, very slowly, bit by bit by bit. And we will get to a point eventually where we can potentially have that moment. But we're not there yet, because we are, as I said, collecting and making ourselves as whole as possible before that.
But you think it's quite possible that that will be in August this year?
No, I do think we're moving into another phase after August. I think a lot of the revealing, the exposure, the collapses, all of that sort of thing, the big structural changes is what we're looking at between now and August. And on the other side of August is feels like a very much more positive and building phase as opposed to a collapsing phase.
Now, I've also heard that when this simulation ends, it's going to be a big celebration.
Mm-hmm. I've heard the same many, many times from home, that there is a party planned. And they're all very, very excited. I mean, there's a lot to indicate that we are close to something, but close and soon. I'm sure we've all heard those words way too many times. I do see flashes, events, several of them, like 3 of them is what I see between now and the end of August, but I don't think they're the event, the flash. I think they're a couple of minis. And these will be the ones that actually allow us to expand our consciousness, those things that catch us as things are collapsing or being revealed.
What about the masses out there that have no idea what we're talking about and don't even believe what we're talking about?
It'll catch them too, and we will catch them as well. And some, unfortunately, minds will break. This is all about the minds. This is all about saving our minds, which is another way of saying saving our consciousness. But if we literally had to be here until everybody was put back together again, this game would never end. But the way I see it, if you imagine a very multi-laned freeway, right now everybody's getting into their own lane. All right, they're finding the frequency that's right for them. And when this all does come to an end, those lanes have got their own exit ramps, and they will go to a place, go to a space, go to an environment that supports them even more, to give them more time, whatever they need, to give them the play out of the narratives that they're heavily invested in. And it's all designed to support. As much as we really are watching a show in many ways, but it is designed to support our moving forward, our becoming whole, and ending this in the right way.
This is off